A lonely father gave his last coin to a stranger. Days later, she returned, and his life changed.
"Please, I just need to call a taxi," pleaded Isabella, her trembling hands holding the payphone. Tears ruined her makeup, and her wedding dress was soaked from the torrential rain pouring down on Bogota. Mateo watched her from under the bakery awning, clutching Sophia to him. The 6-year-old girl shivered from the cold, but her curious eyes never left the elegant, weeping woman.
"Is everything all right, ma'am?" Mateo asked cautiously, approaching her. His Venezuelan accent was soft but noticeable. Isabella looked up. The stranger's eyes reflected a genuine kindness that sharply contrasted with everything she had just experienced. "My phone battery died and I don't have any cash," she said. Without hesitation, Mateo reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a 500 peso coin. It was all the money he had until Monday, when he would get paid for his work at the workshop. "Here," he offered the coin for the payphone. Isabella stared at him, stunned. "But you need it!" Mateo smiled with the warmth he inherited from his late wife. "There's always someone who needs it more." As Isabella dialed for a taxi, she inadvertently overheard a conversation between the father and daughter.
"Papa, I'm hungry,"
Sophia whispered. "I know, princess. Tomorrow Papa will get paid, and we'll buy sweetbread for breakfast. Remember the one you like? The one with raisins, like Mama used to make." Isabella felt her heart clench. This man had just given her his last money. "The taxi will be here in 10 minutes, he said, returning the phone to her. "How can I thank you?" "No need," Mateo replied, holding Sophia closer. "Just take care of yourself." "My name is Isabella," she said, extending her hand. "Mateo Rivera, and this is Sophia, my princess." The girl shyly waved at her. When the taxi arrived, Isabella got in, but turned back one last time. She saw Mateo and Sophia walking away in the rain. The man covered the girl with his jacket, and she held onto his neck. Something about that image stayed with her forever. "Where to, ma'am?" the taxi driver asked. Isabella pondered. She couldn't go back to the church where she had left Ricardo Mendoza in front of 300 guests. She wasn't ready to face her family yet. "North," she whispered, towards the Zona Rosa district. During the ride, she couldn't get the Venezuelan man and his daughter out of her mind. The simplicity of his act, the purity of his kindness, sharply contrasted with the world of pretense and betrayal she had just escaped. 3 hours earlier, she had caught Ricardo passionately kissing Camilla, her best friend since university, in the church changing room. The wedding preparations, the expenses, the family expectations, everything collapsed in an instant. "Love doesn't exist," Ricardo had said when she confronted him. "It's business, Isabella. Your father understands that, but you don't." But now, remembering Mateo's eyes when he gave her that coin, she realized she was wrong. Love exists. She had just seen it in its purest form, a sacrifice expecting nothing in return. The taxi stopped at her apartment. Isabella turned off the meter and went up to her penthouse, where 20 missed calls from her mother and endless WhatsApp messages from bewildered guests awaited her. She took off her wedding dress and dropped it on the floor. In the mirror, she saw herself, 34 years old, a successful architect, the daughter of a wealthy family, and completely empty inside. She took the 500 peso coin from her bag. For Mateo, it meant the difference between his daughter having breakfast or not. For her, it wasn't even enough for a coffee at Starbucks. That night, as the rain drummed against her apartment windows, Isabella made a decision that would change her life. She had to find this man and give him back much more than a simple coin. Across town, Mateo tucked Sophia into a small bed. The 2-room apartment was modest but clean, adorned with drawings the girl had made at school.
"Papa, will that beautiful woman be okay?"
Sophia asked before falling asleep. "Of course, my love. Tomorrow will be a better day for everyone." Mateo turned off the light and remained for a moment, watching his sleeping daughter. 5 years had passed since they left Venezuela, leaving everything they knew behind. Elena, his wife, had died due to a lack of medicine, and he had promised to give Sophia a life her mother didn't have. Work at the workshop barely covered basic expenses, but he never complained. He understood that happiness wasn't in what you had, but in what you could give. He couldn't imagine that the woman in the wedding dress would come back to them and that his life was about to change forever.
Chapter 2. Different Worlds. On Monday morning,
Isabella woke up with a determination she hadn't felt in years. She ignored 53 missed calls from her mother and headed straight to her father's office in downtown Bogotá. Alejandro Kostilov met her with the restrained fury of a patriarch whose empire had been shaken by his daughter's whims. "Do you realize what humiliation you've caused us?" he thundered from behind his mahogany desk. "The Mendoza company cancelled 3 construction contracts. 3 contracts, Isabella."
"Papa, I won't marry a man who cheated on me," Isabella replied calmly.
"Especially not for business.
Ricardo is a good candidate. Men make mistakes, but they are forgiven. Your marriage would have secured this company's future."
Isabella stood from her chair.
"Then find another way to secure your future. I won't be anyone's bargaining chip. If you walk out that door, don't expect a single peso from me," her father shouted. "Not for the apartment, not for your whims, not for anything." "Fine," Isabella said without turning back. "It's time to live my own life."
Meanwhile, in the Kennedy neighborhood, Mateo was facing his own crisis. Don Carlos, the workshop owner, called him early in the morning. "Son, it pains me to say this, but I'll have to close," the old man said, avoiding Mateo's gaze. "The building owner raised the rent by 150%. I can't pay. There's no other way out. I can work for less. It's not because of you, kid. You're the best mechanic I've ever had. But that's how things are in this country. The rich get richer, and we suffer."
That evening, Mateo packed his tools and went to Sofia's school. The girl ran to meet him, as always in a neat uniform and with a smile that lit up his day.
"How was your day, princess?"
"Good, Papa. Mrs. Khan says I'm as good at math as you are."
Mateo smiled, but inside he was crumbling. How would he tell her he was out of a job? Doing dinner of rice and eggs, Sofia noticed that Papa was quiet. "Are you sad because of that woman in the white dress?" Mateo looked at her in surprise. "Why do you think that?" "Because she was very sad too, like you are when you talk about Mama." His daughter's innocent wisdom touched him. "No, my love. I'm just thinking about work." "Will you be out of a job, like Andres' dad?" Mateo sighed. He couldn't lie to her. "Maybe, princess. But we'll manage, as always." Sofia got down from her chair and hugged him. "Don't worry, Papa. I can help. I can sell my drawings." That evening, after putting Sofia to sleep, Mateo sat in the small living room and took out the notebook where he kept his accounts. Rent, utilities, food, Sofia's school. His savings would last for 2 months, 3 at most if they tightened their belts. He opened his old laptop and started looking for jobs on vacancy websites. Auto mechanic, 5 years of experience, documents in order. He filled out the same forms again and again. The problem wasn't a lack of experience. The problem was that many workshops preferred not to hire Venezuelans, and those who did paid less than the minimum wage. As he filled out another application, he remembered the woman in the white dress, Isabella. He wondered if she had gotten home safely, if she had solved her problems. Surely she did. People like her always found a way to cope. Across town, Isabella couldn't sleep. She spent the whole day walking around the neighborhood where she had met Mateo, asking in shops and bakeries about the Venezuelan auto mechanic with the little daughter. "Tall guy, dark-skinned, always with his daughter," she asked Donna Mercedes at the bakery. "Oh yes, he's a very good guy. He works at Don Carlos's workshop, just 3 blocks from here." But when Isabella arrived at the workshop, a "For Rent" sign hung on the door. "Closed 2 days ago," said a neighbor. "Too bad. Don Carlos worked here for 20 years. Isabella felt a pang of panic. What if Mateo moved and she couldn't find him anymore? She returned to her apartment empty-handed, but with even greater determination. She had to find him not only to return the coin, but also because something in that encounter had shown her what was truly important in life. She poured herself a glass of wine and sat by the window overlooking the city. The lights of Bogotá stretched to the horizon. Every light was a life, a story, a struggle. For the first time in many years, Isabella felt truly alive. On Tuesday, Matteo got a temporary job repairing household appliances at a shopping center. The pay was piecework and barely covered daily expenses, but it was better than nothing. "Papa, why are you working at the shopping center now?" Sophia asked at breakfast. "Because sometimes you have to adapt, princess. Like when we came to Colombia, remember?" Sophia nodded. "But then you found a job at the workshop, and I'll find something better too. Patience is key." The girl finished her arepa with cheese and packed her lunchbox. "Papa, when I grow up, I'll have my own company, and I'll give you a job." Matteo knelt and hugged her. "You already have a job, my love. Your job is to study hard and be happy." On the way to school, Matteo thought about his wife, Elena. She always said that difficult times were just a pause before something better. He hoped she was right. He didn't know that just a few blocks away, Isabella had parked her car and was watching them from afar, gathering the courage to approach. Chapter 3. The Search. Over the next 2 weeks, Isabella transformed into a self-made detective. Every morning after work at her architectural firm, she drove south of Bogotá, dressed in jeans and a t-shirt. Not at all how she usually dressed in designer suits. "A Venezuelan auto mechanic with a little daughter," she asked Don Esperanza at the corner store. "Oh, my dear, there are many Venezuelans here, but an auto mechanic. Let me think." Isabella developed a routine. She visited workshops, hardware stores, and auto parts stores, always asking about Matteo Rivera. Some looked at her with distrust, a woman clearly from high society asking about an immigrant. But others, touched by her persistence, tried to help. In these searches, Isabella discovered a world she had never known. She saw entire families living in rented rooms, children doing their homework by the light of streetlights because there was no electricity at home. Venezuelan mothers sold arepas on street corners to feed their children. "Do you think leaving your country will be easy?" Maria, a woman from Maracaibo who sold empanadas near the school, recounted. "But here too, you have to fight a lot. Although, thank God, there is peace here." These conversations changed Isabella. For the first time, she understood the meaning of the word privilege and was ashamed of the years she had spent complaining about insignificant problems. Meanwhile, Matteo struggled to maintain hope. The job at the shopping center ended, and now he repaired bicycles and small household appliances right in his apartment. Sophia turned it into a game, sorting tools by size and greeting customers with her infectious smile. "Good morning, welcome to my dad's workshop," the girl would say when someone knocked on the door. "He's the best mechanic in all of Bogotá." Neighbors began bringing him broken appliances. Mrs. Carmen from the second floor, a young student from the fifth, even Don Roberto, the grumpy administrator, began to trust Matteo's skilled hands. "This guy is gold," Doña Rosa would say while Matteo fixed her blender. "And the girl is simply charming. You can tell she was raised well." But the income was insufficient. Matteo began selling some of his specialized tools to cover basic expenses. Every evening, after putting Sophia to sleep, he looked through online vacancies, sent resumes, and prayed for an opportunity. On Thursday of the third week, Isabella finally got lucky. She was at a hardware store in the Marcella neighborhood when the owner said, "Matteo Rivera? Of course I know him. He sometimes comes for spare parts, lives nearby. But he's not working anywhere right now. I think he's working independently." Isabella's heart beat faster. "Do you know where I can find him?" Not exactly, but go to Doña Mercedes at the bakery. Where did you meet?" She knows everyone in the neighborhood. Isabella ran to the bakery. Doña Mercedes, a woman around 60 in a colorful apron, met her with curiosity. "You're the woman who's been asking about Matteo," she said with a playful smile. "They've already told me about you." "Do you know him?" Isabella asked nervously. "Of course, dear, that boy is a good man. Always says hello, polite, and the girl is simply charming.
They come on Sundays for sweetbread. Can you tell me where he lives? Doña Mercedes studied her carefully. It depends on why you're looking for him, because this man has been through a lot already, so he shouldn't be bothered anymore. Isabella sat on one of the plastic chairs in the bakery.
He helped me a few weeks ago. Gave me his last money when I needed it. I want to repay him.
Aha! Doña Mercedes served 2 cups of coffee. And how exactly do you want to help him?
I don't know exactly. I know he's out of a job. Maybe I can help him find something.
The elderly woman watched her in silence for a long time. Listen, dear. Matteo is not one to accept handouts. He's very proud. If you're just going to come and offer him money, it's better not to look for him.
It's not charity,
Isabella retorted.
It's justice.
Doña Mercedes smiled. On Sundays, he comes with his daughter to La Carena Park. Around 3 p.m. they feed the pigeons and she plays on the swings. Isabella felt a mix of relief and panic. She finally knew where to find him. But what would she say? How would she approach a man she barely knew, but who had occupied her thoughts for weeks?
One more thing, Doña Mercedes said as Isabella got up to leave. This man lost his wife 5 years ago. Since then, the only thing that matters to him is that girl. So if you have any strange intentions, no.
Isabella quickly shook her head, negatively.
I just want to help him, truly.
Okay, but try not to come too dressed up. Matteo will feel uncomfortable.
That evening, Isabella tried on 5 different outfits in front of the mirror. Jeans, a t-shirt, sneakers. Nothing expensive. Nothing that screamed, I'm rich. She tied her hair in a ponytail and applied very little makeup. On Sunday, she arrived with an anxiety she hadn't felt since her university final exams. She drove to La Macarena Park and parked a block away. From a distance, she saw them. Matteo was pushing Sophia on the swings and she was screaming with joy. Higher, Papa, higher! The girl's laughter echoed throughout the park, infectious and pure. Isabella slowly approached. Her heart pounded so hard she was sure Matteo could hear it. When she was a few meters away, Sophia noticed her first.
Papa, it's that beautiful woman in the white dress.
Matteo turned in surprise. Their eyes met, and for a moment, time stood still.
Do you remember me?
Isabella asked, approaching with a nervous smile. Matteo recognized her immediately.
The woman from the rain. How are you?
Good. Better now, Isabella replied, looking at Sophia, who was observing her curiously.
Hello, Princess. Do you remember me?
The girl shyly nodded.
I came to return this.
Isabella took an envelope and something else from her bag.
Matteo frowned. I don't understand.
You helped me when I needed it most. Now I want to help you.
Matteo's expression immediately changed.
It wasn't a loan, ma'am. It was a gift. You don't owe me anything.
Please,
Isabella insisted.
At least let me invite you to lunch.
Matteo wanted to refuse, but he saw hope in Sophia's eyes at the thought of eating out. They hadn't been able to afford it for months.
Just lunch, he finally said.
Nothing more. Isabella smiled, feeling she had won the first battle in a war she didn't even know she was fighting.
Chapter 4.
The Encounter. The restaurant Isabella chose was a modest but cozy family spot in the La Candelaria neighborhood, serving homemade food at reasonable prices. She made sure Matteo wouldn't feel uncomfortable.
What do you want to eat, Princess?
Isabella asked Sophia as they looked at the menu.
Can I have chicken?
The girl asked, looking at her dad for approval.
Of course,
Isabella replied, before Matteo could object.
Ice cream for dessert. How about that?
Sophia's eyes lit up. She hadn't had ice cream in weeks. During lunch, the barriers gradually began to fall. Sophia, with childlike spontaneity, started telling Isabella about her school, her friends, and how her dad had taught her to fix things.
And my dad is the best mechanic in the world,
the girl declared with full confidence. He can fix anything that breaks. Isabella smiled. My car is making a strange sound. Maybe your dad can help? Matteo, who had been mostly silent, looked at her suspiciously. What kind of sound? Isabella improvised. How to say it? A squeak when I brake. It could be the brake pads, Matteo explained, relaxing a bit as he talked about something he knew well. When was the last time you had it serviced? Too long ago, honestly. Sophia finished her ice cream and went over to Isabella. Why were you crying that day in the rain? The child's direct question caught Isabella off guard. Matteo tensed, but Isabella decided to be honest. I was about to marry a man who didn't truly love me, she simply explained, and I realized it just before the wedding. And are you better now? Sophia asked with that innocent wisdom children possess. Yes, much better. Your dad helped me remember that there are good people in the world. Matteo shifted uncomfortably in his chair. I didn't do anything special. You did, Isabella insisted. You gave me hope when I needed it most. After lunch, they walked through the cobblestone streets of the historic center. Sophia ran ahead, chasing pigeons, while Isabella and Matteo talked. How long have you been in Colombia? Isabella asked. 5 years in December, Matteo replied. We arrived when Sophia was 1, and her mum was with us. Matteo's face darkened. Elena died before we left Venezuela. Diabetes. We couldn't get insulin. His voice trembled slightly. That's why I decided to leave. I wanted to give Sophia opportunities her mum didn't have. Isabella felt a pang in her chest. I'm so sorry. Elena was a nurse, Matteo continued, watching his daughter play. She always said that the most important job in the world is to take care of others. I guess that's why Sophia is so affectionate. You can tell you raised her with love. That's all I have to give her, Matteo smiled sadly. Love and an example of working honestly to succeed. Isabella wanted to ask about his work, but hesitated. Instead, she decided to be direct about another matter. I know you work as an architect. Matteo looked at her in surprise. I didn't know. I have my own firm and I constantly need reliable people for construction and renovation projects. Would you be interested if we talked about opportunities? Matteo's expression immediately became serious. Madam Isabella, I don't accept charity. It's not charity, she retorted. It's a job, a real job, well-paying for someone with experience. You don't know me. You don't know if I'm good at what I do. Your daughter says you're the best mechanic in the world, and children don't lie. Despite the tension, Matteo smiled. Sophia, my biggest fan. Then prove her right. Look at my car. Tell me what it needs. And if you do a good job, we'll talk about other things. Matteo studied her for a long time. In Isabella's determination, he saw traits of Elena. His wife was also stubborn when she believed in something. All right, I agree, he finally said. But only because I need a job, not out of pity. Excellent, Isabella smiled. Though I have to admit something. My car isn't making any noise. I made that up. Matteo froze. What? I wanted to find an excuse for you to agree to help, but it probably still needs some repairs. For a moment, Isabella was afraid Matteo would be angry. But he burst into a deep, genuine laugh she hadn't heard in a long time. You're a very bad liar, he told her. I know. That's why I'll never be a politician. Sophia ran up to them. What are you laughing about? About Isabella not being able to lie, Matteo explained. That's good, the girl declared. Lying is bad. My dad says you should always tell the truth. Isabella knelt down to Sophia's level. Your dad is right. And the truth is, I'd like to be your friend. Do you like that? Sophia looked at her dad, then at Isabella, and nodded enthusiastically. As they walked back to the park where Isabella had left her car, she couldn't help but feel that something fundamental had happened in her life. For the first time in many years, she had a purpose beyond her own problems. When Matteo opened the hood of her BMW, he whistled softly. "This car is in perfect condition," he said, examining the engine. "Whoever services it knows their stuff." "I regularly took it to the dealership," Isabella admitted, "but maybe you can do it better and cheaper." Matteo closed the hood and looked her directly in the eyes. "Why are you doing this? Why are you looking for me?" Isabella thought about lying, giving a simple, confident answer. But Sophia's words echoed in her head. "Lying is bad. Because that night in the rain, you saved me. You didn't just give me money for a taxi, you gave me something more important. You reminded me that selfless kindness exists. I want to repay you." "I didn't save you, she did," Isabella interrupted. "And I won't take no for an answer." Matteo looked at Sophia, who was playing with the car keys, completely unaware of the moment's importance. "All right," he finally said. "But let's do it properly. No special favors. Honest work, fair pay." "Honest work, fair pay," Isabella repeated, extending her hand. As they shook hands, both felt an electric charge that neither dared to speak aloud. In that moment, no one could have imagined that they had taken the first step towards something that would change their lives forever. Chapter 5. Building Bridges. Over the next 3 weeks, Isabella developed a special talent for finding things that needed repair. First, it was her car, which indeed had minor issues that Matteo perfectly fixed. Then the door to her apartment, which creaked. Then the air conditioner in her office. And finally, the electrical system in her friend Carolina's house. "This is incredible," Carolina said while Matteo worked on the electrical panel. "Where did you find such a mechanic? He's super professional and charges half what the other one I hired did." Isabella smiled proudly. "Good, right?" Each job gave Matteo confidence and new hope. His income stabilized, although he didn't know that Isabella had personally spoken to each client to ensure the work was genuine and well paid. "Papa is happier," Sophia remarked to Isabella on a Tuesday afternoon as they did homework together at the dining table. "He doesn't stay up late on the computer with a worried look anymore." Isabella began officially spending evenings at Matteo's apartment to oversee some minor repairs. But in reality, it was because she had developed a genuine affection for the father-daughter routine. "Do you know what I like about your home?" Isabella asked Sophia. "What?" the girl replied. "That everything here is done with love. My apartment has many beautiful things, but I don't feel the same care here." Sophia looked at her with the large, intelligent eyes inherited from her father. "Why don't you live with us? My dad cooks great, and I can teach you how to play parks." The girl's innocent question caught Isabella off guard. She hadn't realized how much she had fallen in love with this simple yet meaningful life. That evening, as Matteo prepared dinner, Isabella watched his movements in the small kitchen. There was a natural elegance in his manner of cutting vegetables, seasoning meat, and carefully serving the dish. "Where did you learn to cook?" she asked. "Eleanor taught me," he replied, without turning around. "She used to say that a man who can't cook is an incomplete man. She was very wise. She was perfect." Matteo stopped, holding the knife in the air. "Sometimes I'm afraid of forgetting her voice. I can't quite remember how it sounded when she laughed anymore." Isabella walked over and gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "But you can remember her love, and that's what matters." Matteo turned to her, and for a moment their faces were inches apart. The air filled with a tension neither of them expected. "Isabella, Matteo began. "The food is burning!" Sophia shouted from the living room. Interrupting the moment, Matteo quickly turned to the stove, bewildered by what he had just felt. During dinner, the conversation flowed naturally. Sophia talked about her science project. Isabella shared funny stories about her most eccentric clients. Matteo talked about plans to buy more specialized tools. Do you know what I dream of? Matteo said while they were washing dishes. One day having my own small workshop, but my own, where Sophia could come after school and do her homework while I work.
That's a beautiful dream, Isabella replied. But unrealistic. With what I'm earning now, maybe in 5 years I could save for a down payment. Isabella wanted to say she could help make it happen much sooner, but she knew Matteo would refuse. His pride was one of the things she valued most about him, but also the most irritating. That evening, after putting Sophia to sleep, they sat on the small apartment balcony with cups of coffee. "Can I ask you something personal?" Isabella said. "Of course." "Don't you feel lonely raising Sophia by yourself?" Matteo was silent for a long time. "Every day," he finally admitted. "But Sophia gives me strength. And I realize that loneliness isn't always bad. Sometimes it helps you appreciate good company more when you find it." Their gazes met in the twilight of the balcony, and that electric tension reappeared. "Isabella," Matteo whispered, moving a little closer. "Yes, what's happening between us is a meeting of very different worlds, and it's important." "It must be important," Matteo sighed. "You have a university degree, your own business, a family with money."
I'm an immigrant, living day by day. Do you know what I see? Isabella said, stepping closer. I see a hard-working, honest man who sacrificed everything to give his daughter a good life. I see someone with more class and dignity than any millionaire I've ever known. It's not that simple. It is that simple, Isabella put her hand on his. Feelings don't know about social classes. Matteo looked at their intertwined hands. What feelings? Isabella took a deep breath, gathering her courage. The ones I have for you and Sophia.